Vasistha continued. The description of the universe I have given you is the fruit of direct experience, not inferential guesswork. Inferential guesswork is our usual description of the universe, backed up by scientific experimentation, of course. But it's difficult to confirm something like the Big Bang, isn't it? The Big Bang is an inference. It's something we infer from the present facts. So what's Vasistha saying here? He's saying that it's the fruit of direct experience. So he went out and saw for himself. Perhaps this is one of his astral travels. You may dismiss this if you wish. It depends to what extent you want to discriminate between reality and imagination. Certainly if you're wanting a scientific description as the word's usually understood, then it's not of much use to you. And I think Vasishtha would agree with you, as is pointed out in the second sentence, which I'm about to read. Besides this, there are other universes of which I have not told you. For of what use is investigation into the nature of the world and others, which are but of the nature of a dream? Wise men do not waste their time talking about useless things. He then proceeds to talk about these useless things, and I think there's a good reason for this. The only valid reason for talking about such things is to point us back to the nature of our own consciousness. So let's see if this is what happens. The northernmost extremity is the Meru mountain, and the southernmost extremity is the Lokaloka mountain range. The inhabitants of the various planes of consciousness and the different worlds experience the materialization of those worlds, not others. So what you experience depends on where your consciousness is at, really. We heard that the Lokaloka mountain range is at the edge of the earth plane. We're going to internalize this now. We've got the Meru mountain, the single Meru mountain, and we've got the Lokaloka mountain range. So we've got a single mountain at the top and a whole range at the bottom. And we can understand this in terms of our own subtle body, for want of a better word. The range represents diversity. Meru is the one consciousness. They're connected. They're not different. They represent two poles. And within these two poles, consciousness can take many different flavors. And that consciousness is identifying with its own flavors and experiencing the implications of those flavors as if it's some kind of objective reality. I told you of the skullcaps of the universe. We heard about these skullcaps in the previous chapter. We had a description of the whole celestial sphere. And this sphere is encompassed by another sphere, twice as big. And it's got skullcaps. It's got skullcaps. So this is very interesting. We can try and fit this in with our ordinary understanding, if you like. The stars were formed a considerable amount of time after the beginning of the universe. I'm reminded of a photograph that was revealed recently showing some kind of proto-object which was formed near the beginning of the universe. It was just a few pixelated blobs, but it seemed to be quite significant. It was some kind of proto-galaxy, I think. If we look out far enough, we can see all of time. All of time is presented there in the sky. It's just a question of how far out we can look. So these skullcaps could be the beginning of time up to the present moment, and within this, the stellar sphere exists. But now we're going to go beyond them. Beyond them, the whole universe is enveloped by water, which is tenfold in extent. Beyond that, there is another envelope, this time of fire, which is tenfold the previous one. Beyond that is the wind envelope, and then the plane of space, which are each 10 times the extent of the previous one. Beyond even that is the infinite space. This is neither illumined nor is it dark. It is full of pure consciousness. It is beginningless, middleless, and endless. In that, countless millions of universes arise again and again at different points, and again they are dissolved in it. There is no being in this infinite space to entertain a notion of these universes, but they exist in whatever form and manner they exist. So the whole thing comes back to consciousness. This consciousness right here. And we've had the elements pointing us back to this consciousness. This is what these traditional elements do. I think most people we could describe as caught up in the earth element. The idea of something solid out there. This is what they're relating to. This is what they're identifying with. But some people are a bit more rarefied than that, and this is described in the rarefication of these elements. We've got earth, water, fire, air, and space, and finally consciousness. It's an arrow pointing us right back to consciousness. These elements represent states of lesser identification with the notion of a solid world. I've talked about this before, so I won't dwell on it now. But there are a couple of points which should be mentioned. We've got this tenfold increase each time, which leaves the whole of the physical universe actually arising in quite a small part of consciousness. This has often been described in stories. The whole physical universe exists in some dusty corner of consciousness. So when we come back to consciousness, we can start appreciating its magnitude. We can rest in its bigness. We don't need to be unwittingly drawn into notions of the physical world out there, because this consciousness is vast. And I think we can say that most creativity takes place in people who are not so identified with physical reality. I mentioned the mathematical reality of the world last time. We could describe this consciousness as the sphere of water or any of the other subtler elements. The extent to which your consciousness is fluid, the extent to which it is free floating, that's when it's caught up with the wind or air envelope. The extent to which it is established in itself. This is the nature of fire. It just burns. Fire just burns any impurities. And then you have space. This is when consciousness is completely free and realizes its nature as encompassing, as enclosing everything, as space for everything to arise within it. So let's allow this story, this description of the universe, to bring us right back to here, to where we essentially are.